All right, let's get into today's breakdown of the price. Um, Today's was actually interesting to see. My bias and everything was pretty on point. I had a one opportunity that came by. I did not execute on it, which was tough, but we'll get into why. Okay, so start on the higher time frames, kind of see where we're at. Um, as far as the higher time frames, I still saw that tap into that daily fair value gap. So I was still pretty bullish. Everything on ES just looked a lot more bullish. Uh, we had a drop lower on NQ while ES was still putting in higher lows and higher highs. So, and we kind of had lower lows and lower highs here. So it was a little bit of a uh, difference. I forgot the word for it, but there was a difference in both the charts. So going into that, I wanted to keep that in mind that we could have some odd price action. But moving down, I saw this sweep down here, and we had a really nice reaction off of that daily fair value gap. Mostly what I was looking for is possibly a 5 or 15-minute displacement going higher, which we'll get into in a second. We had that SMT as well, so it was kind of building a bullish bias. Now, before this is going to come into the analysis later. Before this, I marked up this 1 hour gap. Um, as a possible place for the market to turn around if we continued the lower lows and lower highs on NQ. But going off of ES being the heavier pair, I wouldn't really have expected to see a turnaround there. So it's kind of like a mismatch bias, I know, but that's kind of just what was in my head as far as this 1 hour, seeing kind of that bearish structure, even though we had that sweep. Um, Moving into the 15-minute and into our macro, let's see, we had put in this 15-minute before starting off, and then we had some 5 minutes that we were putting in that I was monitoring. So there was these 5 minutes that I was looking at, and then we put in this 5 minute here. So this was the first actual opportunity that was presented. So looking into this, the first thing I like to look at is a sweep of liquidity. So we had a push into that 5 minute out, we came back, swept liquidity, had a nice move out, and a fair value gap that would have been valid for me would have been here because the real displacement above the high was here. Now, again, on ES, it looked a little bit different, which was what was a added factor into why this trade was hard to execute personally for me. And that's still something I'm working on. I'm trying to build up enough data to know if the 1 hour, even though like my higher time frame was bullish, so if the 1 hour bearish should be something that I should completely negate my trade off of, or just stick to that rule base of a 5 or 15 minute against my trade kind of nulls the trade, so I can't take it anymore. But then if I add the 1 hour, it's just going to be way too much, and the opportunities that come to me will be like twice a month, and that frequency is just way too low for me. And I know for a fact I'll end up just YOLOing and FOMOing into positions because that's a different type of patience. I mean, I know traders do that, and that's just like big ups on you because that's crazy for me at least. So here we go. So there was this displacement here, the first displacement, but that one for NQ was down here, so that was not something I was interested in. But then when we got this higher, at the moment I actually didn't even see this gap until it was a little bit too late. But at that point I was kind of just 50-50 on the trade anyways, and I ended up not executing just because that 1 hour in my mind was just too apparent. I don't know. I don't know what was going on in my head, but I didn't execute on that, and then had to watch it kind of just go and hit my target, which is honestly way worse than losing the trade. I mean, it was stated in Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas that A missed opportunity hurts more than a loss, and that's 100% true. But this is more of like a learning experience anyway, so I'll take that with a grain of salt. So, or a grain of sand, or salt, I don't know. But moving along into the second macro, we started off here. Looking at this, we had this big bullish push up. Uh, and then I wanted to see a tap into that 50%. We got that tap, but there was no liquidity sweep. That was really interesting to me. It was just this big push back into not even the 15-minute, it was a 5-minute. We had that push into the 15-minute on ES. Then ES pretty much just went sideways. And that's once we put in a couple higher highs. Lower highs and higher lows. I knew that it was just going to consolidate. I mean, this is kind of the signature of the week. Pretty much every single day has had at least one macro that's done this, so I kind of just was okay with just being like, okay, there's probably no reason to kind of force a trade anymore. We didn't even sweep this high, so the shorts wouldn't have really even been valid. Even if they were, we had a 5-minute here, which would have nulled my position, so there was nothing really interesting there. As far as lessons, moving in, I'm gonna do some back testing for sure this weekend, and that back testing is gonna be solely based off the 1 hour gaps. I know for a fact that the 15 and 5-minute trading, like if I was taking a long and I had a 5 or 15-minute within my 1 to 8 R, I probably shouldn't just take that position because the probability of it reversing is very high. I've noticed that. I do want to make it a point that I will allow myself to take that position if I can fit my 1 to 8 R before that gap gets hit. And if it's kind of pretty clear that we've either swept the liquidity or something and we're going to go back down into a discount or vice versa. But yeah, so that's something I'm going to look into. Now, the 1 hours are kind of iffy because a lot of the times they just get ran through, which I guess makes sense because of the higher time frame biases. Like at that point, you're working with the 4 hour and dailies, and the daily was clearly bullish. So yeah, it makes sense. Overall, pretty good day of trading. I think yeah, ES is back at all-time highs, but pretty interesting day. A lot to learn, I guess. Biggest thing again is just executions, but I think over time I will be able to kind of hone down on that part of it. That seems to be my last part. Uh, but yeah, let's see. Do a little back test this weekend, kind of come back with what I can tweak to increase the frequency, because that's the biggest thing. Is like I understand that my A plus setup will most likely only show up once to twice a week, but if I mess up and add in a variable, and which I know I'm not supposed to anyways to begin with, but if I mess up and add in a variable, that kind of throws off my edge a lot and makes the frequency of the trade to appear even less. So it'll be like twice a month, which for me is just doesn't make sense to trade that way, especially if I'm planning to leverage prop firms. It just wouldn't make any sense. But yeah, that's it for today.